chance to hear it, so let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You can hear with some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to the
Good evening,
show.
Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Thursday. Yes, Good afternoon, Cayman Islands, and good morning, yes, to our global family. Welcome to another episode of Sabrina Speaks right here on CMRTV.com, where voices of the islands, conversations for the world, and the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes stage. I am your host, Sabrina, and it's good to be back with you on this thankful Thursday for sure, the eve kicking off the weekend. And today we are going to have a very informative discussion. I hope as you all join me here in this afternoon, as we've been doing all week, that we will encourage you to participate in the discussion as well. And we will continue to educate here on this platform. But as you know, it is all about what we're going to be talking about today is something that every person, Caymanian residents, need to understand, need to know. What I'm talking about is your power. I'm talking about your power, not the kind of power someone gives you, but the kind that it's already yours because the Constitution protects it. Yes, that's the kind of power we're going to be diving into today. And I won't be surprised if it takes us over a few series similar to what we did with the immigration bill. And in a small island like ours, where decisions ripple through families, workplace, and communities, it's easy to feel like the system is just too big to question. Like, who's going to tackle that? Who's going to challenge that? Poor little old me. But that feeling is not the truth. You're pigeonholing yourself. It is far from the truth. The Bill of Rights give you the legal right to challenge if you feel you've been subjected to unfair treatment. It gives you the right to challenge, to demand reasons. It gives you the right to speak out. It gives you the right to challenge and to stand firm when something doesn't feel right. And in this episode, as we begin to scratch the surface, it's about showing you and explaining to you as best as I can how to use those rights step by step and why unity in this case is our greatest strength. Because when we stand together, informed, and unafraid, we become the most powerful force in this country. It is a pleasure to be here with you. And the content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, and our participants, is intended solely for general informational and entertainment purposes. It is not a substitute for professional legal, medical, or financial advice. I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for your specific concerns. Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. 345-936-8255 is the number to call to be a part of this discussion. And what do you know? We're still making sure you know what's going on down there at International Lighting at Ed's Plaza, North Sound Road, and definitely at their Bodentown location. Yes, they're still having their big sale from 2025. This is their last sale of 2025. And we don't want you to miss out on the huge savings on accessories, kitchen rugs, curtains. And they still got a few left, just a small amount of those 24 and 32 piece bedspread sets that comes with bathroom mats, curtains, and even a clothes hamper. Yeah, plus much, much more Edward has down there. And here again is the bonus. Remember this, every $50 you spend, you'll enter into the draw to win a round trip Cayman Airways ticket to any destination that they fly. You could shop and you can fly tomorrow. Yes. For more information, please give Eddie and his team a call. That's 345-949-5141. And their business hours are Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Even though it's the holidays, 6:30ish, it all depends. You know how Eddie is. But give them a call in case you're stuck in traffic and you're like hearing this right now and you want to go check in on those bedspreads. Maybe you did not get the right color that you were looking for this holiday season. Because I know us Caribbean people. I know how we love to spruce up for the holidays. And what? There's only 7 days left? 7 days are left. So look. It's not too late. You can go down to International Lighting and choose those bed sets. Maybe you need that big pot that you need for your Cayman style beef or the turtle meat, whatever your proteins of choice will be this Christmas, because I know the family will be coming over. Maybe you need a pressure cooker too. You need to speed things up. That and so much more Edward has down there for you. Yes, because it is one-stop shop. And remember, he has his location out in Bodentown that you can always go. And should there be something that is not at the Bodentown location, he will arrange to get it up there for you. So don't let that stop you. Whoops, I got the wrong thing up there. I'll be bringing up that motion in a second, but let's get out of the way. The weather. Gentle winds and slight seas are expected through the next few days in association with a weakened ridge pattern across the Northwest Caribbean. Now, a low chance for showers remains possible tonight as residual moisture slowly moves out of the region. Satellite imagery shows low-level clouds drifting over the Cayman area. The forecast for tonight calls for partly clear skies with a 20% chance of showers. Temperatures will fall to the upper 70s. Wind will be southeast at 5 to 10 knots. Seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. The forecast for tomorrow calls for fair skies becoming partly cloudy with a 30% chance of showers in the afternoon. Temperatures will rise near the mid to upper 80s with a heat index of 94 degrees. Winds will be east to northeast, 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. There will be a high tide at 8:11 this evening, a low tide tomorrow at 2:56 in the morning, and another high tide at 10:07 in the morning. The sun will set this evening at 5:50 and sun will rise tomorrow morning at 6:54. Now, the outlook is for a slight chance of isolated showers on Friday night through early Saturday as moisture continues to impact the Caribbean area of a frontal boundary. So there you have it. Hoping you're making your plans and I get your feedbacks. It is my pleasure to bring this to you. Definitely keeping it just a little different for a podcaster to go in depth with the weather. But we know how it is here with us in the Caribbean, and we don't forget our brothers and sisters over there in the sister islands as well. It is my pleasure. Thank you all for your continued support. We appreciate and we definitely love you. Now, we don't have any wedding anniversaries to actually shout out today, but we definitely want to share our sentiments here on the Sabrina Speaks family, wishing well wishes, get well wishes, thoughts and prayers to Nolly, who is celebrating his birthday today. And we will keep you, CMR, Ms. Sandra will definitely keep us updated with an update of his family, but that does not take away from the fact that today is his birthday. And we want to wish him all the best, and definitely thoughts and prayers with him and his family. Yes, so there you have it. Let's see who's here. Hey, Sonia, you were the first to comment today. Good to have you as usual. It's a pleasure to always see you. Connie Bonnie, good evening to you as well. You are not on CMR. I don't know why not, because it's showing me that I am there. Can you tell me? I don't know what's happening. That's not making sense. Hold on. Let me just edit this. Just let me edit. Hold on. Thank you for telling me. Just let me add them back. Remove. And let's edit back. Thank you for telling me that. Let's go. Save changes. Thank you, Connie, for telling me that. I'm not so sure. Maybe I can share the link again. Let me go back here and share the links. But it is a pleasure to be here with you. I thought something was strange. Let's do this, Connie Bonnie. Thank you for telling me that. Just bear with me. Let me get up some links here for you. And we can get everything going again. This is what happens when you are live. Let me share the links with all of you again. I hope that it comes back. Good evening, Annie Banny. How you doing, my sweet? Let me put up the links for Facebook then, okay? Just let me do all the CMR Facebook handles. View on Facebook. I'm going to share those links again, and I'm going to put it into the CMR. I'm going to, because I'm live there. I'm seeing it now. Maybe it came back up. I am just seeing it now. So let me just do that, and we can get that out of the way. Facebook. Yeah. Yeah, I see me. So I'm going to share the links again, just so that we don't miss anybody here this evening. For those of you just joining me, we're going to be talking about your rights. Yeah, today. Yeah, you should be all right now. So please make me know if you're seeing me. I see the numbers are coming up. I don't know what happened there. If we are having any more issues, I will definitely reshare those links. I know a lot of you depending on it. You are on it. Okay, thank you. So that must have been a glitch. I'm not so sure what's going on. Joys of being live. And yeah, I get what Sandra was saying. Girl, you better know how to do this on your own. Boy, she knows. And I must say, I'm no longer as scared as I used to be. Thank you for that, Connie Bonnie. Appreciate it so, so much. I can't see the Commonwealth star. Oh, what you just give it a break. Oh, here you are now. Okay. Hey, Damien, how are you? How are you? It's good to have you here. Donnie Bonnie, how are you, my sweet? Good evening, Anne. It's always, always good to see you and have you here. Thank you so much for the compliments. It's the holidays. It's not like I'm short of clothes, so I definitely wear them. And I dress, like I told you, I dress, I go to work, I come to work. I'm presenting myself here, and yeah, there we are. I definitely make sure that I get ready and I come to work and I present. So yeah, I treat this just like the only thing I walk to work. I don't drive anymore. Good for my carbon footprint, but I treat this, yes, this is my job and this is what I'm going to be doing. But I thank you all for your feedback. I thank you as well for your participation. Oh, yeah. And you are greatly appreciated. The number to get involved and to join in on the conversation is 345-936-8255. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And like, you know, the other night we continued on with our discussion, even though tonight we have at 7:00 on CMR TV, Getting to the Top will be immediately after this show. So we will end at 7 to make way for the next content creator. And but sometimes we're going to go a little bit over. And the only how then you'll be able to continue to see me is on my channels. So you're going to look for Sabrina Turner, community activist, on Facebook. And then I'll continue streaming there. The streaming will not cut. And also on YouTube as well, you look for the Sabrina Speaks show or at Sabrina Speaks, the number 12, and you subscribe there and you should see us coming up. So should we have to continue in a discussion and you see me drop from the CMR platforms, you can look for me on Facebook, Sabrina Turner, community activist. I'll be there. And also on YouTube, the Sabrina Speaks, I should be there as well so that you don't miss anything. But again, we want to keep it where it's within the allotted time so that nobody misses out on anything. But sometimes the conversations are just that good. And you're like, continue. And this space is yours. And I am more than happy to do so. But we don't want to make that a practice. Yeah. As I was preparing for today, every time I come live, usually news pop up and all that sort of stuff. And even though I could roll this out, I want to get your feedback on it. Before we get into the whole topic of our show, what are your thoughts on a Have You Heard segment? It could be local and it could be international or regional. But sometimes I actually share stuff that pops up. That's saving apart if there's any traffic issues and all that sort of stuff. But I'm intending on doing it because some of the things that are happening, even regional and internationally, which I'll share here with you in regards to the motion, the private members motion, that's local. But also there is something that caught my eye about cannabis. Yes. Have you heard, and I got to put this up here for context. Have you heard that the president of the United States has reclassified cannabis as a less dangerous drug? Literally seconds before coming on this show, that popped up on my screen. Now, really what that means is that this change only applies, first of all, for the United States of America. It does not affect the Cayman Islands law in its current stance. Because here at home, even though we recently had a referendum where I think it was 60% of the voters supported decriminalization of small amounts of cannabis, the decriminalization means that if someone pretty much is caught with a little cannabis, they may face a fine instead of jail time. But this does not mean cannabis is legal here in the Cayman Islands. So you still cannot buy it or sell it or use it freely. And in the context of exactly what was just announced and the reclassifying of what the United States has done, I need to remind people that cannabis remains illegal for recreational use here in the Cayman Islands. And medical cannabis is only allowed with a doctor's prescription. Now remember, the US law changes have no bearing here on Cayman law. And I know that a lot of you stream us overseas and you come in from Canada, you come in from the United States, you come in from all over the world and thinks that, because it's okay where you're coming from the state that you're coming from, it must be okay here. No, our laws are made here by our government. Okay, that is one thing we got to remember. So at the end of the day, the US law doesn't apply here in Cayman. And at the end of the day, this how he's reclassified cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, meaning now that it's officially recognized as having medical use and is considered less dangerous under the US federal laws, okay? So what he's done is moving it from one schedule as a most dangerous, because under Schedule 1 in the United States, it was categorized as a dangerous and for no medical use. Now being placed to Schedule 3, it means in law, federal law, that it's accepted for medical use and it is lower risks. And the impact that this will have for the US means that it's easier research, possible potential medical access will be, of course, much easier. And of course, they have taxes over there. We're tax-free. it will be tax relief on businesses as well. So I want us to compare what they're doing in the United States for what its context here. 2025 referendum, over 60% of our Caymanian voted in support of the decriminalization of small amount of cannabis. Now, the difference means this decriminalization, right? Small possessions may be treated like a fine, like a traffic ticket, and you will not be actually jailed. And legalization would mean then that it's fully lawful to buy, sell, and use, which has not happened in Cayman. What we voted for is decriminalization of small use. But our current law, recreational cannabis, remains illegal here in the Cayman Islands. Medical cannabis, though, remember now, recreational, meaning you just walk with a blunt, with a joint, whatever you want to call it, down the road, and it's that is still remains illegal for recreational use. But medical cannabis is allowed under prescription, and that has been the case since 2017 here in the Cayman Islands. But for emphasis, there is no United States of America influence. Our Cayman laws are independent, and U.S. decisions have no bearing here on the Cayman Islands. So just in case you pass that and you want to know what that means, I thought it was important or quite interesting to share that with you. So what do you think? What do you think? I didn't see you there. I love that. Anyhow, Jess, there's another Have You Heard segment here, and I want to share this. There is a new private member's motion has hit Parliament again, and I want to share it with you. That speaks to, this motion is to mandate red line amendments to bills, okay? So it speaks directly to what many Caymanians, pretty much recently, the talks of making the laws much easier to understand. And this particular motion that I have on the screen was brought by MP Kenneth Bryan. And as you can see here, it was seconded by Deputy Speaker Perlina McGlaw-Lumsden. And what it's calling for is something that may appear simple, but it's really, really powerful stuff. It's powerful, okay? Because every time, what it's asking for is every time government changes a law, they are asking in this must publish red line versions showing exactly what is being added, what is being removed, or what is being rewritten. Because right now, when an amendment bill comes out into the public's domain, which we saw recently, it is written in isolated clauses that we actually shared here on the screens. And one would really need to put side by side or flip back and forth between multiple documents in order to compare the sections and basically to do what I could call legal gymnastics, to just try and figure out what has changed or what is being proposed in comparison to what law is in effect now. And as we saw most recently with that immigration amendment validation bill that is going to be law coming into effect in March of 2026, we saw what happened there even when one was asked to explain it. So what this motion is saying is enough confusion, enough guesswork, show the people the changes clearly in layman's terms. And what this signals is then is if this is passed, it means that when the laws in the future are amended, let's say the government takes this recommendation because a private member's motion is only asking the government, the sitting government, if they would consider what is contained in this document. Should the government say that they will consider, and let's say it becomes law, it means that you will then see all text crossed out with the new text highlighted, and it will give a full picture in one place, not flipping back from one document to the next. So there would be no need for no more decoding, no more information imbalance, no confusion, actually. And it is just no more guesswork then, is what it is. So at this time, we're seeing now that a lot more people, Caymanians, locals, are paying closer attention. And we're seeing now that you're asking sharper questions and you're actually expecting and demanding transparency. And this motion lands right on time, that should be considered when the House goes back in Parliament. So, yeah, you pretty much may see, like on a document in Word where you do the markups, this is similar to what they're being asking for in this motion. So, yeah, there's the takeaway. The motion is about, really, I think what they're trying to get here is transparency, making it democracy accessible, being fair, and to the everyday Caymanian. Because when the government changes a law, they should show us exactly what they change, clearly and visibly. And that's what this is asking for, so that everyone can understand it and no more hidden changes or more confusions or more guessing. It just has it right there in plain language. So there you have it. And I'm hoping that you can appreciate that. I'm quite sure as the days lead up either to the next sitting of our House, that you will get and share more information, that the private member's motion member from Georgetown Central will be on, I'm quite sure, talking about it and what it means leading up. And let's see what becomes of it. So yes, it's good to have you here. If you're just joining us tonight, this episode is called Getting Back to the Meats and Potatoes of what we're going to be talking about this evening is Know Your Power. And my aim this evening pretty much is talking about human rights, the Constitution, and how we as Caymanians can use the tools that we pretty much already have in our hands to protect ourselves and to actually just stand together. The phone lines are open. 345-936-8255 is the number to call. And let's keep this conversation going. So I want to dive into the topic where every single person needs to understand. And we're talking about your power, not political power, not financial power, not who you know or who knows you. My aim is to talk about the power that is already here because of the Cayman Islands Constitution, and what power that Constitution gives every citizen of this country. And the power to question, the power to challenge, the power to speak, the power to stand up when something feels unfair or even unjust. And you will find in small jurisdictions like ours, where, some may feel that government decisions can touch our jobs, our families, even our reputation, maybe our livelihoods. It's easy to feel like you can't push back, that you just have nowhere to stand, like you're exposed. But that feeling, as I said at the beginning, is not true, because that's exactly what the Constitution does. It protects your dignity. It protects your freedom of expression that we have been speaking about here. What does it mean going into the digital age and control? And your right to fair treatment as well. And guess what? Also your right to hold governments accountable. So tonight we're going to be breaking it down. I'm doing my best to make sure that I can do that for you, breaking it down so that you can use those rights with unity and with respect. Good evening, caller. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Good evening, Sabrina, and good evening to your esteemed listeners. I really have two things, but they're mega topics I want to discuss. But if it is possible, I would love to just address this issue of the motion about the red line drafts that Kenneth Bryan is trying to introduce. Yeah, because it is a broad subject. It is, I want to discuss it individually, but also it brings in a lot of other things regarding what can be done to just make the law more accessible to people. I think it is a very well-timed motion to bring, because, as you know, a lot of suggestions sometimes.
Hello? I think he just lost his connection.
Okay.
You're back. You're back.
Okay, very well. Yeah. You see, if you bring a proposal in, and if there is no specific case you can cite, which really like magnifies and gives proper emphasis to the problem, sometimes you don't get people to accept it.
Uh-huh.
And this is the best time, I think, to bring the motion. So the timing is good because it comes around it comes at a time when the immigration law, which is about the most complicated amendment law you can ever have, what in terms of the text and the way it is worded, like you find some places where it says anything that is done in relation to X, it will be done under the immigration validation law of 2025, and then you will say, oh, but that is the very law that we are talking about. So how is that possible? Okay, that is because when they make the new edition of the laws, the new revised one, which incorporates these amendments, that is what it will read. That law now will be reading if X didn't happen before the immigration amendment law. So that, I mean, it's sort of like, it's a little bit confusing if you are not used to it. But anyway, the point is, because it's complicated, it would have been much easier to have a red line draft, which is you've got a draft here which says this is what it says, and then you do your markup. We are all familiar with a markup version. You see what is deleted and you see what is brought in, because that is much easier to follow. But you see, this Sabrina, is emblematic of a broader problem about how legislation is handled in the Cayman Islands. The main problem is that a lot of the drafters who have been engaged, at least who were engaged when I was there for 12 years, from 2003 to 2015, they were not innovative at all. Okay? Anytime you came up to say, can we do this a little differently because this is better? Oh, we don't do that here. And then sometimes you say, well, even if we don't do it here, isn't this a good opportunity to become more advanced and do something that is of good service to the public? They were just too much into, we don't do it here. And that is a problem. And sometimes you would even say, okay, this is what they do in such and such a country, and it works very well because of ABC. Again, they would say no. And the issue is that even when that was taking place, when the politicians were told, look, you can change the way you do things so that laws are more acceptable. The politicians also didn't choose that. It's like they were always being held to ransom.
Right.
Let me give you examples over time of things that have been done now, and some have not been done yet, and yet they were actually suggested a long time ago. For a long time, as you know, laws have been drafted in a gender-specific way. It is said that the masculine gender includes the female gender, so when you write a law, you always say he, him, and so forth, and it is assumed it covers women. But over time, a lot of societies accepted that even if technically it is correct, you need to draft the specific provisions in a gender-neutral way. You say him or her, or you restructure your sentence in such a way that you don't have to use a pronoun.
Correct.
It's not overly complicated to do. And that, I suggested that to the department somewhere around maybe 2007 or so. And the reason I suggested, I had just come then, I had been in the place for 3-4 years. I didn't want to make too many suggestions. But a lot of people I was dealing with in the client ministries were saying, why do you still write he and so forth? Can't you write it in a gender neutral way? Eventually, I put it to my head of department. She just said, no. We don't have to do it that way. It was only when the Honorable Tara Rivers was elected, the year she was elected, she kind of pushed that, and there were some ladies, I remember, they appeared on Talk Today, and they said, well, look, we are not trying to create a revolution here. We just think that it is more inclusive if we can write these laws differently. And so they started doing it now. I don't know how universal it was being done, because at that point I started seeing some laws are done in a gender neutral way, others were not in a gender neutral way. But I imagine they gave each drafter an option to do what they wished. But it does seem now they may have gone fully gender neutral. But you see, what is so disappointing is, in the Australian state of New South Wales, they went gender neutral 100% in 1983.
Wow.
That's when they went gender
That's
neutral.
a long time they identified that. And here we are in 2025 just trying to catch up.
Just trying to catch up. And when I suggested it in the department there, it was about 2007. So you're talking about, I think, 23 years or so, you know, and it's like they're always very, very slow to be able to catch on. I had suggested, for example, that they should use a new template, which is where you put your marginal note at the top, what is called a marginal note. You put it at the top because it's easier to follow. You put it in bold and so forth. And just the whole layout, I won't get too much into the details. And again, they refused. They said, we don't want to change that. But now, apparently, maybe they've got somebody who they respect more, has got a better skin than me, has told them you have to do that. Now they have done it.
But with this motion that is being tabled now or being filed, what does that say for maybe even the language that is used in the future? Because there's one thing of showing the markup version instead of doing the gymnastics that we were doing for the immigration. With what is being proposed now, if it's considered and made into law, these are the things that persons would be able to see on the surface immediately. And then bring questions or make suggestions as well for gender neutral changes.
Yes. And you see, I'm glad you sort of broadened the discussion there, because at the end of the day, this is only one of the many things you have to do. You also have to change the styles in which you write the legislation. It has to be in plain language. It has to be less verbose and all that. And in the Cayman Islands, if you look at some laws, like if you look at the 2017, the limited companies law, you won't believe you are reading a document in the 21st century, because it had like one section one time going on for 17 lines without a full stop.
Wow.
Okay? So, and I remember I took these laws, I had left the AG's chambers then, and I sent it to them. I said, you can't write laws like this. I've got actually a bunch of about 10 or 11 laws spanning more than 100 pages, where I try to point out just the obvious mistakes they were making. So basically, all I'm trying to say is that this should be part of a broader move to make laws easier understandable. I think Dan Warren Jr. mentioned some time back about the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons and how it is published with the bill, but it is not eventually published with the act when it's enacted. And that is wrong. If you go, because it's not only members of parliament who want to understand in layman's terms what is being enacted, but members of the public as well, once the law comes out as an act of parliament. And on top of that, just the way they write the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons is not informative. We talked on your show before about how they say it, for example, in Section 35, there are transitional provisions. But when you go, exactly, then you go there to the transitional provisions, it doesn't tell you anything. You are supposed to break it down in the memorandum to say what exactly that provision is supposed to do. All those things, they still have to change up to now.
And your interpretation could be far east from far west when it actually is stated on the floor of Parliament. Because that's why we took the time to interpret, but yet I kept doing the disclaimer, subject to change, because when you're left open, you really don't know what the intent was or the spirit, that infamous line, the spirit of the law.
Yeah, exactly. You see, and again, that's why I like to speak to you, Sabrina, because you see, having been in politics, especially, quite apart from everything else, you always have the perspective on the other side. You see, the intent of the law is very important, because once in a while, you go to the provision and you read it, and there are arguments on both sides. You don't know what it means. Now, what you do in those cases is you try to look at the context in which it is used, what is called the internal context, meaning you look at the other sections, the other parts. Do they seem to support one view or the other regarding the interpretation of a particular section? And if those don't help you, then you go outside the text of the bill. You go to the memorandum of objects and reasons. And that's what even courts do. If they have got a really big interpretational problem, they go to the memorandum of objects and reasons and they say, okay, what did they mean to say in this provision? But if when they go to the memorandum of objects and reasons, all it says is that the transitional provisions are in section 35. Where does that take you?
But
and so
what devil's advocate, because I'm good at that. Devil's advocate. What if it is by design that way to leave discretion? I'm just asking a question, because if you've seen somewhat a change in the style, but instead of tightening it up, it's actually leaving more for interpretation, then discretion creeps in, which is what we're trying to get away from. What's your take on that?
Exactly. Okay. What you want to do is, when you are writing a law, of course, you want it to be as clear as possible. Okay, you want to limit the discretion that is given. There will be a few cases where you will leave it a little bit open, or even if you leave it open, you say, well, a minister may make a decision regarding X, taking into account the following factors. Okay, so in other words, you have said you've got a discretion, but we are going to circumscribe this discretion by saying the factors you should take into account are either only the following, or at least this is an indication of some that you might, take into account. Okay, so sometimes you might do that. But you see, even if sometimes you craft it in a very narrow way, we are human beings. Sometimes an exotic case arises and you do not know exactly what they meant about that. Then what you do, you go to the objects and reasons, because the objects would tell you what problem they are trying to address.
Or should.
And in some cases, you would even go to, pardon me?
Or should. It should tell you.
Oh, you should, yeah. You should, yeah. Should, yeah. Because sometimes you go there and then it's not there. Sometimes you even go even further. Sometimes you go to parliamentary debates. You go to law reform commission reports and so forth. Now, there are some rules as to the weight that, for example, parliamentary debates carrying. The House of Lords in England have said very, very clearly that you can't take every statement by a member of the House as to what the meaning of a provision is. But you can take that second reading speech, which is where, as you know very well, because you have given second reading speeches, where you go in Parliament, you are giving the official statement as to what the bill is intended to do. The court sometimes will look at that to just see if we can help them to understand.
And that's the details, which is why it's important that those in the ministry understands their role in when they're writing these things for ministers. Do you understand where we're going here? Because unless the minister themselves have some sort of experience or puts themselves in the position to really just heads down like what we're doing here, and they read it, they understand it, and know exactly, with all the public discussions, with all of the guidance that they have gotten, that it makes sure it's reflected when they deliver those, and you're just not reading a story, but you're able to deliver it so people will understand. That, Mr. Belita, is a skill that you depend largely on the technocrats to be able to deliver as well.
Exactly. Because you see, the technocrats, when they write it, they will tell you, okay, this is the legal effect. But the minister is supposed to say, okay, now I know you have told me this is technically all right, but I want you to put it in my speech so that it can be explained better. And I want you to put it also in my memorandum of objects and reasons, because I want the public, I want my constituents, I want the people in the Cayman Islands to understand that even if they read section 35 and then they say, well, but we don't know what it means, when they come to the memorandum, they will be able to understand. And if somebody called Kenneth Bryan asks me, what does it mean in plain English? I should not just understand it, but I should be able to say, we have explained that in paragraph 38 as to what that provision means. We are giving you additional information. And that's the way it should be. By the way, Pastor Sabrina, if the MPs can do my course on statutory interpretation and the legislative process, I cover all this very well. But let's get back to the story.
I love how you just do that, though. I admire you. But you know what, this caller, I could be very honest with you. The feedback that we're getting for how we're doing this, like how I want to go into the Constitution, which I know you and Denny were all over, and the Bill of Rights. Some people were thinking that even possibly in layman's terms now, that when you were talking about, let's say, the Bill of Rights, that was two separate documents. No, that's a section contained in the Constitution. But when you break it, it is a part there. It's a part of section 1, segment 1 of the understanding. And when you're talking about all of this, that you're talking about your freedom of speech, your right to fair treatment, privacy, equality, and then it breaks down into section 2, even the powers of the governor. I have heard and how the office of the deputy governor and all that sort of stuff, but this go back up. When you're talking about these things in layman's terms, it is quite an easy conversation to have when we do it like this in layman's terms for people to get it. And that's the huge takeaway where we're talking about this as though we're talking about we're going downtown to do our Christmas shopping and then you're going to go to Foster's, I'm going to go to this one. We can do that and still empower and educate, which is why it is imperative that I have perspectives like yourself, Danny, Siobhan, others call in, and then you still deliver these convoluted documents in layman's terms, but we include it in discussion. Do you know how empowering that is and how informed when people make comments and have discussions when they're coming from an informed perspective and they can do it in layman's terms? Do you know what that's doing to a society?
Yeah, Sabrina, I have discussions sometimes with my Caymanian friends about how, despite all the experience I had in the law, I started off in court and then went to writing legislation, worked in international organizations. But it's amazing how when I engage with just people who are not lawyers and they are asking certain questions, it is just amazing how my own knowledge is either given a new perspective I had never thought about before, or sometimes it just allows me to refine the way in which I express something so that people can understand that. I mean, that's amazing. But Sabrina, let me do this. I mean, this is about 1:45. Could I leave you now, and maybe in the second hour after some people maybe have called, then can talk about this new charge which they are filing against Sandra Hill, because to me that raises issues about human rights, which is what you're talking about today, abuse of authority and the rest of it. It's a pity that nobody can join me on this because this is on a WhatsApp call. So can I leave you now and try to reach you maybe a little after, 1:15, if you put nobody on? But I really want to talk about that because that's very important for everybody. The point I want to make without getting into a lot of detail is that it is now becoming very dangerous in the Cayman Islands to express views if they are going to charge this good lady again. But can I leave you now if it is all right?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. What I want to go through here is, and I'll probably try sharing my screen again. So when I'm breaking it down to persons, it'll give them a visual of what I'm talking about. I guess wherever you feel that the rights are infringed or whatever, you can bring that in. But the whole idea was to talk about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And if that can segue into what topic we're on, by all means, it's here. Not to, as long as it doesn't interfere with what Sandra is doing, you're, as long as we don't infringe on the entire charge or whatever it is they're doing with Miss Sandra. We just want to talk generally about freedom of speech. We want to talk about what the Court of Appeal had decided in the other case and so forth. Correct.
Yeah, and try to make sure that it does fit in with what you are trying to lay out as well, not to go too far. Yeah.
Sure, not a problem.
Very well. Thank you, Sandra. I hope I'll join you later. I hope. Thank you.
There you have it. 936-8255 is the number to call if you want to join in on this conversation and give your perspective perspectives, because I want to speak about the Bill of Rights in the Cayman Islands Constitution. It's not just for those persons' words on a paper. It is about the power of the people and a tool placed in our hands that I don't even really think we understand. I have heard Denny talk about this so many times, and he speaks about the Bill of Rights, but he says it so casually. I thought it was important for me. Little did he know this was something I was about to bring up, unknown of what was happening with Sandra. This was another segment that I was going to bring up, because we constantly hearing us talk about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights here. And I says, you know what? What we did and how we presented the immigration amendment bill, why not do something like that in small chunks when it comes to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights? And here we are, that Sandra did what she did this morning, and she shared with us publicly what has been happening to her. But I want this opportunity as well to take and say shout outs to big supporters, the crew over there at Slay Beauty Bar. Tanisha, you getting all pretty? You got a party or what? Got to check you out. I recovered well from Saturday night too. Yeah, girl. But thank you for your support. It's always good to have you guys tune in, locked in, and thank you for your support on and off the tubes. We love you. We appreciate you. The core message, though, this getting into this whole Bill of Rights and power of the people. The Bill of Rights, what that document is it guarantees, and I'm going to be as layman as possible to delivering this for you. The Bill of Rights pretty much guarantees, not pretty much, fundamental freedoms to its people. It guarantees that freedom when it comes to your speech, when it comes to freedom of movement even, and freedom of where you can assemble, and protection even of your property. And this is just scratching it, right? And when it comes to empowering, so here we go. The Bill of Rights, it covers empowerment, balances and responsibilities. And I don't think a lot of us really understand as a member of civil society, what that foundation gives you when it comes to your right. Because the Constitution is very clear. Unity, will, and lawful action safeguards our democracy and strengthen community. Do you hear what I said? That's empowerment. No one should be afraid to speak up or stand up for their rights. No. When that is exercised in accordance with the law and without inciting violence or unrest, your voice, my friends, are indeed protected. Protected in exactly what the Constitution says. Unity, will, and lawful action safeguard our democracy. And guess what? In turn, it does. It strengthens the community. So, of course, rights come with responsibilities, because speaking about freedom of speech, that freedom of speech does not mean freedom to spread hatred and cause discord. Freedom to or assembly does not mean to create violence either, to go out and burn tires and mash up place. No. But the Bill of Rights protects lawful expression while it's also protecting national security and peace we all depend on. So when you look at the Constitution, as I alluded to earlier, and you may hear a person say it's covered under your Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights versus the Constitution here in the Cayman Islands, the difference is the Constitution is in itself is the supreme law, the 10 Commandments, pretty much like how you use the Bible, right? It is the supreme law of the Cayman Islands. And what the Constitution does, it sets out how government works. And what it does, it also defines the powers of different branches or agencies, and it also establishes the legal framework for our country. Okay? Now, the Bill of Rights is not a separate document. No, it's not. It is a part of the Constitution itself. Specifically, it is embedded as an included section within our Constitution Order of 2009. And the relationship between the two is the Constitution is the overall rule book for governance, and the Bill of Rights is the chapter in that rule book. But that specific chapter, the Bill of Rights, focuses on fundamental rights and freedoms of the people of the Cayman Islands. And what this does, together, they ensure that both the structure of government and the protection of each person rights. Okay? So together, this document and that first chapter ensures how government is structured and the protection of individual rights. Okay? So think pretty much of the Constitution like the blueprint for a house. Okay? It shows the design, it shows the foundation, the walls, and the roof. That's the government structure. And then chapter 1 of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, is like the safety system inside the house, the locks, the alarms, and the protections to keep the people living in the house safe. But guess what? They're a part of the same plan. Remember, we're talking about the blueprint, using this as an analogy. They're a part of the same plan. But the Bill of Rights is the section dedicated to protecting the people. Okay? And I don't think, based on the discussions that I've heard, that you, the people, had a clear understanding and understand how impactful that means in layman's term. Because the Bill of Rights is part of the Constitution. And sometimes when people speak, you may think it's a separate document, but it's not. It's a section, a chapter 1, that guarantees and protects each individual freedom. Okay? Now, I will try my best to share my screen here with you. I did it yesterday. Oh, yes, I did. So that it can make sense. Because I want you to follow along with me as best as you can. And let me do this. I'm hoping I can see that. Because I want to make sure, there we go. Share. Okay. So you should be seeing that on your screen right now. And it shows the Bill of Rights. And I'm going to go to part 1 of the bill. No, is that the one? Yeah. I think. Part 1, yes, here we go. This is the only how I'm going to make you follow along with me. There we go. You see this part 1 on the screen on my screen? I'm hoping you all are seeing this. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So part 1 of this bill, it says the bill, part 1, Bill Rights of Freedoms and Responsibilities, right? What this actually says, and for context, I'm going to be as the big picture of things. I'll be breaking it down. I will not be reading this word for word for you. I'll be giving it in a synopsis for time. And actually, in layman's terms, the big picture of this particular section, okay, is that not seeing the document? Oh, thank you for telling me that. I am trying to share my screen. Why isn't it sharing? Please tell me why. I'm doing here. Share screen. There we go. Share. Tell me if you're seeing it now. Message me back privately. Yeah? That's supposed to be showing on the screen, Bill of Rights and Freedoms and Responsibilities. You're supposed to be seeing it, hopefully, on the screen, because it, nope. Why isn't it not sharing it? That sucks. Okay, I'm trying my best to get it here. If I do this one, guess what? That's going to be so darn tiny. That one is small. So I just want to validate what I'm saying here to make it make sense. But I know the share screen works so much better. Let me see. Yeah, I hope that's better. Just, are you seeing that one? Because I'm going to be breaking it down. And for those of you who can, I guess, magnify your screen, if you're watching us on a device, it's easier. But the share screen for me is not working right now, but I have it downloaded here. Yeah? Okay. All right. Let's see. If there's a delay, sometimes there is a delay because it was showing that I was sharing my screen here, but I know there's a couple seconds delay. So yeah, there we go. Let me just try to go part as this. I'm not going to rush this. I know we're done it. We got an hour. And at the end of the day, I'm going to cover this in multiple segments. Not probably what you want to hear over the Christmas, but I think it's very, very important that we know our rights. And let's just get into it, okay? So, no, I'm not on the screen. You don't need to see me. I just want you to see the document, but thank you, my love. The big picture of this section 1, part 1, that covers the Bill of Rights, Freedoms, and Responsibilities. And what it goes down into is guarantees the rights of freedoms and responsibilities. In the big picture, the grander scheme of things, what this section is basically saying is, here are the rights and freedoms that everyone in the Cayman Islands has. And here's how the government must respect them, okay? It's like what I said, the foundation of democracy. It really is the rules that protects the people and keep our government. Yeah, and keep government power in check. That's what the big picture of this section is saying. And some key points that are actually here covers self-determination, cornerstones of democracy. It also covers in this section the recognition of Caymanian identity, which we have heard a lot about, okay? But let's just talk about the self-determination part, right? Every group of people has the right to decide their own future, be it politically, socially, and even culturally. And here's an example of this self-determination. We as Caymanians can choose our own leaders. Here, under this constitution, we can even make decisions about our economy and definitely celebrate our culture without outside interference. And key points as well is that the Bill of Rights is also the backbone of Cayman's democracy. And that means that it ensures fairness, dignity, and freedom for everyone. Now, just like a house needs a strong foundation, democracy needs guaranteed rights to stand firm as well. Okay? And this also acknowledges Cayman's its uniqueness in history, and is born, because it says it right here, on Christian values and a way of life. Now, you have seen that petition that we spoke about yesterday, that one particular Christian group was singled out. Let me give you an example of recognizing Caymanians' identity. For example, laws and rights here are shared with Cayman traditions in mind, right? Not copied blindly from elsewhere. So that's an example of what is unique for us. And we know what we're trying to do with even the immigration reform is to protect who we are, right? Also, the Constitution in itself, in this part, sets out what the government must do and what rights the people have against the government. Did you hear that? What rights people have against the government. So if the government passes a law that unfairly discriminates, people can actually change it. Why? Because equality is a protected right, and it's right here in the Constitution. These rights are mainly about protecting people from government. You have heard Danny talk that all along. It's about protecting the people from government's actions, not from our private individuals, unless the Constitution specifically says otherwise. So here's an example. If a private company treats you unfairly, that's usually handled by the employment law, not the Bill of Rights. But if the government does it, the Bill of Rights applies. You just need to know how to use it. And here, in this said document, the government, in definition, means public officials, and the legislator, meaning the lawmaking body. Courts are mostly separate, except in certain sections. So let me give you an example again. Remember now, the government in this document means public officials and the legislature. But if, for example, if a police officer violates your rights, that counts as government action. But if in your private dispute with your neighbor, that's not covered here. That's a civil matter. Okay? So think of this entire Bill of Rights like rules of a game for democracy in the Cayman Islands. And the rules for this game, the players, the rules, and the referee. In this case, the players are the government and the people. The rules make sure the government doesn't cheat or misuse power. Guess who the referee is? The referee is the Constitution. And that Constitution, my friends, ensures fairness and your freedom. Yes. So it goes into that section where it says life, right? What does that mean in the context of this? And I just so wish I could, don't worry, for the next segment, for the next show, I'm going to make sure I can share the screen because it makes so much sense when you can see what I am saying clearly on the screen and what I'm breaking it down in layman's terms, okay? Life in the Constitution, it's pretty much right to life is protected under the Constitution, under your Bill of Rights. No intentional killing, and there are also exceptions, right? So let's talk about life. The law guarantees that everyone has the right to live. And the government has a duty to protect that right in accordance to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, freedoms, and responsibilities. So here's an example. You can't be killed by the government or anyone else without lawful reason. Yeah, I said it. I said it. No intentional killing. What do you mean by that? No one is allowed to deliberately take another person's life. That's covered in the Constitution. So murder, for example, is strictly against the law because it intentionally deprives someone of life. Goes against this Constitution. Now, there are some exceptions. When force may be lawfully cause death, the law does recognize that there are rare situations where someone may actually die, but it is not considered a violation of the right of life if the force used was absolutely necessary and legal. But let me break that down. I'm talking about in the case of self-defense. If you find yourself having to protect yourself or others from violence, here's an example. Let's say a police officer shoots someone who is attacking an innocent people. That may be lawful. Let's say, for argument's sake here, lawful arrest or detention. Let's break it down there. That is preventing a dangerous criminal from escaping. And here's another example of that. What if someone tries to escape prison and threatens guards with a weapon? Force, in that case, may be used. Here's another thing. If someone dies in the event of suppressing riots or uprising, yes, that's also could be an exception, because stopping violent riots or rebellions, for example, if there was a big attack on people and these people refuse to stop, authorities have the legal rights under those circumstances to use force. That, my friends, is covered in the Constitution. And when you talk about lawful act of war, we're getting deeper into it. When you get into that, there could be deaths that occur during a war. We're seeing the unrest right here in our region. As long as the war itself is lawful, which, as we can hear, is being questioned under international law. Yeah? So think of the right to life like almost a shield that protects everyone. Normally, no one can break that shield. Killing is forbidden. But in extreme circumstances and situations, like self-defense, stopping a violent riot, or, as I alluded to earlier, a lawful war, that shield in itself allows limited, lawful exceptions to protect the greater good. Right? That's exactly what that means. So, in simple terms, if that was a lot for you to digest, that is right here covered on that one page when it comes to life. What that means, everyone has the right to live. They are protected by law. No one can deliberately be killed, okay? There are exceptions, though, in this section. In rare cases, if force is used lawfully, like self-defense, stopping violent riots, and like I said, during war. And if someone dies, it's not considered a violation of this right. So think about the right to life, like I said, as a shield. Nothing can break it. But in extreme situations where protection others is necessary, the shield's a lawful exceptions. Let me go to some of your comments popping up here on the screen to keep you informed. Yeah. Good evening, Miss Dorothy. How are you? That's why I'm going to be taking the corrupt admin government to court for millions. Kim and Brack. Good evening to you, my dear. Correction, Tartarian. They were not a Christian group. The leader clearly said that they did not want to be associated with Christians. It goes against their religion, the Quran of 929. Oh, okay. Thank you for that clarification, Tartarian, so much. The CI administration government killed my right to thrive and survive. They abused the office to intentionally deprive me of life. Okay. Well, if you tune in, then you will understand where the Constitution protects you if you know how to use it. Good evening, caller. How are you? What's on your mind?
Hi, not bad. You were just talking about the right to life.
Yeah, because I'm going through what I did with the immigration. I'm trying to do that with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Just doing it section by section in layman's terms.
I wonder if the businesses who were fearful of robbers put up any signs, or whether they took any actions to defend their property in any way, or are they just standing there?
I don't know. Hold on. Let me merge this other one. This is Alfred. We're doing a merge. Good evening, Alfred. You're live and you're merged with Denny.
Hi, good evening, Sabrina. Good evening, Denny. How are you both?
And everybody else who's online. Alfred?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead. You and Denny.
I wanted to say, perhaps it would be helpful to also explain to the listening public that, Cayman's Bill of Rights and it is the Bill of Rights can be classified in three ways, right? Absolute, limited, and qualified rights. Right. So absolute rights can't be limited in any way whatsoever. So it would the rights of freedom from torture and inhuman treatment, slavery and servitude, no punishment without law. Those are absolute. There's no sorry, I get kind of kind of stuffy. I think I might be coming down with something. There's no balancing the public interest. Like those are absolute. Now, limited rights mean that the rights exist, but the Constitution itself builds in specific lawful exceptions, right? So an example of that would be like what you were saying, the right to life. So, but it recognizes that there are some lawful exceptions where it's absolutely necessary, force that's used, or lawful acts of war, etc. Right? And then you have qualified rights, which can be interfered with only where the interference is justified. So, let's say, okay, so you have the right to private and family life,
right?
Home and correspondence. But let's say you're in your home and you're out, you're by your window, and a police is passing by, and you're caught in. Like the police look up and he catches you in the middle of a crime, looking through your window, and the police breaks in to prevent you from stopping a crime. He didn't whatchamacallit, he didn't violate your right to private and family life, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of stuffy.
I hope you get better. Danny, what do you got to say on that?
Well, yeah, there's another element, because what you see in the Constitution there about the what you call an exception, they're technically called derogations to your right. So that's talking about what the government can do.
Right.
So in your right to life, if you're escaping custody, as an example, it would be the state's responsibility to restrain you or to prevent you from being a harm to society. And if you are being a harm to society, like threatening life, like say actively threatening life, as an example, then the state, that's where the state then can use its judgment to determine whether you should be stopped by deadly force or not, which is distinct.
Yes.
Quite distinct from the right to self-defense.
Okay.
And in the right, that's what is happening there. It's technically a type of self-defense, but it's two completely different provisions that's being provided for. So a police officer,
the example that I gave,
can kill you if you're trying to harm society as a result. Say you've escaped, like I said,
correct,
and you're harming society. The police officer could kill you in that process if they felt that was necessary to do. But what self-defense is where you, Sabrina, attacks me. You're not the state. You're not a police. You're not the government in an official capacity making a decision about me. You're just an ordinary person, and I'm just an ordinary person. But for whatever reason, you went off and you decide you're going to try to kill me.
Oops, hold on.
I have a right.
Hold on. Is that you, Alfred? There's a lot of background noise.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
Okay, go ahead, Danny.
So if you just for whatever reason decided that you were going to kill me, you don't have any permission or authority to do that, right? So I would then have a right to respond to your aggression to prevent you from harming me, all the way up to taking your life if that was necessary to stop you. And so,
but that would have to be proven in a court of law that the necessary steps, you would have to prove that it was self-defense, correct?
Well,
by whatever means that you've used to protect yourself.
You remember the means is a different thing, but the concept of self-defense is a right that you have wherever you are, because you see your life wasn't given to you by the government.
Correct.
Right? What the government is saying in the Constitution order is that they recognize that you have a right to life. It's not that they're granting you the right to life. They're just recognizing that you had it, because your right to life existed before the concept of government existed. And so you talking about proving in a court of law. Well, first of all, before you can go to court, somebody would have to decide whether or not you committed a crime. You wouldn't prosecute someone if they didn't commit a crime. Now, lawful self-defense, meaning it's legitimately done, is not a crime. So you wouldn't be prosecuted for self-defense if it was done properly.
Right.
So remember the incident that took place in 2013 where a homeowner shot and killed a person who
entered their property. Mm-hmm.
Well, what they did was they were wearing an ankle bracelet, so they were being monitored by the government
Mm-hmm.
of their locations. And what they did was they cut the ankle bracelet off, left it at home, so the government thought that he was at his place when in fact he was at somebody else's place trying to break in.
Mm-hmm.
And the homeowner, after hearing some funny things over a period of time, said, well, something is wrong. And he took out his gun. And what followed was that the man came into the person's house, and the owner said to leave. And instead of leaving, he swiped at the owner with a knife.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner shot him, and he died. Well, that case didn't go to court because he acted lawfully.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't take someone to court you'd only take someone to court if they acted unlawfully.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what would happen is the police would do an investigation. They would look at the circumstances and they would say, well, it looks like this was legitimate self-defense. So they would send it to the DPP and say, well, here's what we think in our investigation. The DPP would say, yeah, this looks like this is legitimate self-defense, although I'm not sure about this current DPP. But if it wasn't, then the DPP would recommend that the person be charged if they had evidence to show, well, this wasn't really self-defense. And so the point that I'm making to you is that right to self-defense is different from that provision under the right to life, where the state can take your life.
Right. Correct.
Right?
Understood.
Yeah. And then secondly, now you talk about the means of self-defense. Well, in Section 18(1)(a) of the Firearms Act, it says that no person shall discharge any firearm within 40 yards of a public road or in a public place, except in the lawful protection of his person or property, or the person or property of some other person.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason it's written in the negative like that is because it's saying that under no circumstances do we want you to be discharging a firearm near a public road unless it is absolutely necessary. That's why it says unless, you're acting in self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
So the exception is made because life is important. And so now you're balancing the life of the person who live in that area against the person who's being attacked.
Okay.
And since they have the same value, then, it justifies some degree of risk in order to prevent the loss of innocent life.
Mm-hmm.
So the law allows then for a person to act in self-defense, not just of themselves, but if you have a neighbor that's being attacked and it looks like they are going to kill that person, you can intervene to try to stop that person from attacking them. And failing that, you can escalate the force to prevent that person from killing them,
mm-hmm.
all the way up to deadly force.
Could I interject here?
Yeah.
Because I don't want people to lose that point. Absolutely necessary, because that's a very high bar.
Correct.
Yeah, but that applies to the state.
Right. So
that's a different provision from self-defense.
Right. So in terms of the police and stuff, I mean, even in the government examples, right? The force applied has to be the minimum needed for the job.
Right.
So it has to be like absolutely, not because it was convenient or you know, electronic, or it has to be the absolute minimum, because if it's judged excessive, then the protection doesn't apply.
Right. That's for the derogation of the right to life when the state is acting.
Right.
But that standard does not apply to self-defense. It's not.
It's too different. Yeah.
It's not if it's absolutely necessary.
Correct.
That language isn't used because what the problem is with self-defense is that attacks are so varied. Like, an attack can start off as not being seen as an attack, and before you know it,
it escalates.
You're full of blood, right? And so you have to have more latitude. And basically, when someone is attacking you and you believe that what this person is doing is going to result in you having severe injury or death, that allows you to defend yourself against that person. It could be you could say to the person, stop. If the person doesn't stop, you could warn them again. This is all provided you have this opportunity, because every attack is different. Sometimes you don't get that opportunity if you act now or else. Right? It depends. But the point I'm making to you is that if you have that opportunity to have the person change their mind, then you would want to do that. But if that is not the case, then you shouldn't sit there and wait until you're killed to try to figure out whether the person is going to stop
or not.
Yeah, because that's not going to work out.
So Danny, I mean, even though we're talking about Bill of Rights, but you know, with the self-defense being a separate thing, I have to ask you, right? Just for the education, if you slap me and then you turn to walk away, and because I gotta get last lick, I use lethal force out of anger to teach you a lesson. Is that law? Would that be self-defense or no? I already know the answer.
If the person slaps you and then they turn around and walk away, I would suggest you don't touch them.
Exactly.
You're going to be in big trouble. But the reason why I bring up self-defense in this context of the state having the power to take your life when you're trying to escape is that what the state is doing is something similar to what you could do in self-defense, which is police officers might be defending their own life, or they might be defending the life of someone else. And in self-defense, you have the right to defend yourself, or you have the right to defend someone else. So don't think that because they're not attacking you, you're helpless. No. You have an obligation. Well, I shouldn't say obligation. It's a moral obligation, as you know how we are a brother's keeper. If you stand there and you watch someone be beaten to death and you do nothing, you morally, you're just like the person who killed them. Now, I know that that's going to sound strange in this day and age, because what typically would happen today is, instead of helping you, they would just pull out their phone and
record it.
And that's it. They're not going to get involved. You're on your own. And because I know that people are going to take the position that I'm on my own, is why I insist on having a means by which I can defend myself, because I can't depend on other people to help me.
Okay. So how does this tie in with this whole, everything that you've explained there? We're trying to break it down in layman's terms, but then there still seems to be hoops and hurdles that people will have to go through to use this as their defense, as their foundation, as their rock.
Suppose someone escapes prison, right? And they decide they want They need food.
Mm-hmm.
They need a phone. They need clothing because they have to get out of the yellow jacket.
Yeah.
And they go to some stores and they decide they're going to rob the place to get the stuff they need in order to continue being free from the law.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the government, if the police are involved in at the scene where they're committing the robbery,
Mm-hmm.
the police would be acting under that derogation to the right to life because they're trying to protect the life of others.
Okay.
But at the very same time, the owner of the store has the right to self-defense, which is articulated in the Firearms Act. It's articulated in other places of common law as well, but
Mm-hmm.
but it's specified in the Firearms Act of your ability to defend yourself by means of a firearm. So if people had a firearm, they could defend themselves against violent crime
Mm-hmm.
by that means. One, I would suggest that people familiarize themselves with the concept of self-defense, the legislation around it, very well. I don't think you can just get up one day not knowing anything and then just go out there and everything will be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're in a stressful situation, what you're going to do is what you've trained to do. But if you didn't train to do anything, you're most likely going to freeze or do the wrong thing. And so knowledge is power. And so you need to understand it. You need to absorb it, and in such a way that it's like you just understand it, second nature. Because acts of defense usually happen really, really quickly.
Yeah. It's a thin line. That's how quickly it
You'd
is.
be standing there and you just turn your head and within half a second,
Correct.
You have to make up your mind
what are you going to do? Fight or flight?
Yeah. So you got to really saturate your mind with possible scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Danny, can we? Alfred, go ahead. I think you were going to say something, or one of you were going to say something.
No. I'm listening to Danny. I was thinking of an example, when you were talking about being quick. Because I mean, if somebody comes at me, and just you have very little time to react, and then I just ball up my fist and I punch them. But where I happen to punch them, let's say I punch them in their temple,
that caused
death.
And
then and that causes death. It's like, well, they were coming at me really quickly. I didn't have time to think
where it was going to land.
Where it was going to land, or I just wanted them away from me.
Well, when it comes, let's just say, for example, you end up with the current DPP, and he makes a poor judgment, and you end up in court. What the jury is supposed to do is to not think, well, what the jury should do is put themselves in your position and think, if I was in a position and I only had that split second and that happened to me, that's how the jury needs to think about it. The jury shouldn't say, well, now that we've looked at all of the facts that you didn't know at the time that you hit the person, they shouldn't look at all those after the fact considerations and say, well, you shouldn't have done that. That they have to put themselves in your shoes in order to make the judgment about how would a reasonable person respond. But there's a concept that actually is outside of all of this, that precedes all of these laws, which is in the book of Exodus. And it's set down so that if a person comes into your house, say at night, and a fight breaks out because they're trying to, rob you, hurt you, or whatever, and you hit the person in such a way that the person dies, which is the example you're giving there.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible says that you are guiltless unless you fail to report that incident to the authorities.
Hmm.
So what do you think about my defense here? Well, Your Honor, I really don't know. Like, I just held up my fist and he ran into it. And I mean, I tried my best to withdraw my fist as quickly as I possibly could, but they just ran into my fist and their head just hit my fist.
So why did you have your fist off?
Very interesting, guys.
Why did you have your fist up?
That's where you would have to prove self-defense.
Well, see, the reason I would think that he would have his fist up is because he perceives a threat.
A threat, yeah.
Right, but what it suggests to me that he's thinking is he's saying I didn't really do it. It just kind of accidentally happened. Now things can accidentally happen, but the reason he had up his fist is because he
automatically assumed, right?
And but the question is, does he understand that he actually has a right to defend himself and shouldn't be afraid of the fact that he
executed that right? Yeah.
Right, yeah. And so that's the difference between understanding what you have a right to do, and it does impact what you actually do, which could impact whether you get to live or die. Because if you fail to make appropriate decisions, let's say a person is on drugs and you smash them 5-10 times with a baseball bat, they might not even feel it because they're totally numb.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they're still coming after you, even though you hit them as hard as you could. What do you do then when they grab you with a bear hug and just crush you? So what I'm saying to you is that the scenarios can be varied, but your best defense is to understand what your rights are, because that'll allow you to take the appropriate action instinctively, because this is something you've gone over in your mind. So when it comes to like if you get on a bicycle, you don't have to think about, well, what do I do again? It just happens. And that's what happens when you condition your mind and your muscle in acts of self-defense. You will naturally do what you trained to do, but you won't do anything most likely appropriately if you didn't train at all.
So them karate classes important.
Well, those classes are important, but remember they're limited, right? Because self-defense is whatever tools you can have is good. But keep in mind that you'll hear people like, oh, you don't need a gun, you could just use karate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happens if you have a bad hip? What happens if you have a bad back and you can't roll up on the ground with a 21-year-old and you're 60?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's not that cut and dry. But if let's say you do martial arts has a limited application because you need proximity in order for martial arts to benefit you. So you remember the incident in Town where the guy went into the store and the store owner pulled out a machete and ran him out of the store?
Yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah. Okay. I don't recommend that anybody take that action. That was super dangerous, right? Because here's the problem. First of all, you don't know if the gun that the person had is a real gun, right? And then second of all, you don't know if the person you're challenging that has the gun is actually a hardened criminal or not.
Mm-hmm. I
suspect that since the person who came in with the gun ran out after being challenged by the shop owner with the machete,
right?
He either had an imitation firearm which couldn't really do anything and he decided to retreat, or it was a real gun but he wasn't a hardened criminal and panicked. there could be different scenarios, but the point that I'm making to you is that as a shop owner, confronting someone with what looks like a gun, with what is essentially a knife, at a distance that is, I would imagine he was about 10 feet away from him.
Right.
That's not a wise thing to do, because if you were dealing with a hardened criminal, and if it was a real firearm, you would be in really serious trouble.
But you're not thinking about that with the adrenaline rush and you trying to protect your.
That's why
you're not thinking about that.
That's why training is important. You have to condition. You see, the idea of self-defense is a conditioning of your mind, right? And so, if he had proximity, like let's say the person with the gun came behind the counter with him,
right,
before he pulled out the machete. Now he has an opportunity, right? But that, even so, that's still a very dangerous situation, right? But you have to think about understanding the consequences of dealing with a firearm versus a knife. And there's a saying in self-defense. It isn't, I'll explain one thing about it, but what it says is that never take a knife to a gunfight. That doesn't mean you shouldn't take a knife to a gunfight. And I'll explain why that's not a contradiction. Because sometimes you might find yourself in a situation in which it's better to use a knife because of the situation that's unfolding. And then sometimes it's better to use a gun. So when you're in an attack, there is no pause button where you could say, well, let me press pause. I go in the kitchen, get a knife, and come back. So it means you would have to have the knife on you before you're attacked, in the same way that you would want to have on a seatbelt before you wrap yourself around a light pole. You can't wait until after the incident in order to put on the contingency. So you would want to have a gun and you would want to have a knife. But the question is which one you use. Well, that depends on what situation you find yourself in. But generally speaking, when they say don't take a knife to a gunfight, what they mean is like what you saw play out in Bodden. You don't do that. That was super dangerous.
As Damian Henry said, treat every gun drawn and pointed at you as the real thing. Better be safe than sorry.
That's correct. Yeah.
Gentlemen, what I want to try to get into the freedom of expression and the freedom of speech, and I don't think time will allow us to do that, because I wanted to actually cover that as well. But I can see where this was important, because I was trying to do it where you had the different sections up on the screen, and I'm going to definitely get that sorted tomorrow so that you can follow me along as we actually speak about the different sections of the Constitution here. But I wanted to try and just dabble into that part about freedom of expressions, and I will not have the time. I have to end at 7. So,
well, can I beg you, because Dilika wanted to call back and talk about that other case. Could we escape and give him the opportunity to talk about that case?
If he wants to, and if he can do it in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, I guess I can't answer whether he can do it in 10 minutes, but I'd like to give him the opportunity to address it, because that is something.
But he's calling on WhatsApp, and I think you guys are straight to 2 can't merge. Yeah, so both of you will have to hang up, and then maybe you call back on, or are you just tomorrow?
Right there. Yeah.
Okay. So
well, you said you got to finish at 7, right?
Yeah. So if we even go into that, why don't we just go into that in detail tomorrow? Or you want
in detail of what?
No, you want Mr. Balika to come back and explain it now, or you want us to do that tomorrow?
No, I was saying he wanted to call back.
Okay, so all right, I get you. Make him call back. All right.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Let's see if we can get Mr. Balika back. He wanted to do a merge. So let's see what we can do here. But that's not going to happen. So let's give him 10 minutes to do Hey, hello. Hi. We had Mr. Warren, Denny, and Alfred on, and they wanted to hear what you had to say in regards to why you hang up, you know, the case with Sandra. Wanted to get your feedback on it, but we are limited for time. So can you just explain that in about 10 minutes, your opinion on that? Because I have to end at 7.
Yeah, well, thanks very much, first of all, to Danny and Alfred for stepping aside so that I can do this. It is something I would have wanted to discuss if it were possible with them on, you know, just so that we could have hopefully a richer discussion. But thanks very much for that. I'll try to do what I can. I mean, this is potentially a very short matter. But I think it's good to just be a potentially a long matter, but I think it's good to introduce it and be able to say something about it, because you can discuss it purely as a matter of freedom of expression, but also discuss it as a broader issue of rule of law, accountability, victimization, persecution, and all that. But let me see if I can discuss the narrower issue. And tomorrow, you know, time permitting, we should be able, all of us, to be able to.
But we can go straight into it tomorrow. But I think he wanted you to just break the ice today so that we set the stage for tomorrow.
And I think that's a good idea, and also just to sort of like plant the bug in people, so maybe more people might be able to tune in. Now, I'm not breaking any news. I'm not in the news breaking business, but Sandra Hill herself broke the news this morning on the cold hard truth that she's being charged, and she's being charged under Section 88B, I think it is. It is a general offense of harassing somebody. And this is in relation to a story she did on some people who were mentioned there. She also hasn't got the details of like the actual events which they are charging her with. I mean, they have charged her. I've seen the charge. The charge says that she's being charged under that section for harassing somebody, basically. But they haven't said who the person was charged. But I think they'll have those in detail when it comes up in court sometime in February. I think 26 or thereabout. In February anyway. Don't quote me on the particular date, but in February. The first thing I think is to emphasize the enormity of the issue. This issue is not about Sandra Hill. It's not about the Cold Hard Truth, the program. It's not about CMR. It's not about Sabrina Speaks or any of the things that might be more proximately related to it. This is an issue about our rights, all of us. Freedom of speech. You were speaking earlier, Sabrina, about freedom of speech. And you said something in there that I liked when you said, well, freedom of speech is something that you can use even to defend other rights. Mm-hmm. Okay? Like if somebody has been deprived the right to live where they want. Okay? Yeah, you will use the freedom of speech to try and defend that right. That makes it a kind of a very unique right. And I only got that. I've never really thought about it that way before. It was only when you spoke about it, it gave me this, oh yeah, by the way, this is the way it works. Mm-hmm. It's a right which you can defend in itself, but it is a right you can use to defend other rights as well.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not about that. So let us see this as if what is being done is not all right, we don't know whether it's not all right. From a legal purpose, we're just saying, look, it's not yet in court, but we just want to talk generally about these rights. Secondly, it is not even about the DPP per se. Again, it is about the DPP, it is about the Judicial and Legal Service Commission, it is about every authority in government that has power which they can use properly or which they can abuse. That's what it's about. So this is something that affects every institution in government, every member of the public, especially those of us who love to express our views and are candid about it. Mm-hmm. That is why I think it is important for all of us to pitch in and be able to to talk about it in a way that allows us to understand it. Now, for me, I believe that whenever a public institution takes a decision, like the DPP's office, there is nothing wrong with criticizing the DPP's office. Under the Constitution, what it says, Section 11, it says, if something is in court, you should never discuss it in a manner that adversely affects the independence of the court or the integrity of the court. It's not an absolute right to say we can't talk about anything as soon as it starts going to court. No. We can talk about it, but we can only talk about it in a certain way. Now, having established that, I think personally, from the facts that I know about this case and in light of the Sandra Hill case, which was decided upon by the Court of Appeal, I would want greater information from the DPP to know why it was necessary to charge somebody at all, considering a story that they gave. They said this happened and that happened in relation to person X and person B. That person was an elected member of the House, so they are in the public arena. The money being spent on certain people was public money. The matter, therefore, was one of public interest, and it was therefore a legitimate subject to discuss pros and cons. So if somebody does that and you say, well, but we are going to charge you, unless you can show me a little more than that, I am very suspicious about it. I'm just being cautious here. I don't want to condemn off the bat. Yeah.
So do you think this could be the chilling effect?
It is a chilling effect because I will cite two cases which I would want the DPP to explain why they are charging this case and they haven't charged some other cases. Remember the case of Doctors Express? Doctors was Express where...
Which is still, I think, ongoing.
It's still ongoing, yes. 4 named officials in the government were exchanging emails saying, yes, we know what they're doing is lawful, but this is a good opportunity for us to clamp down on this. In other words, they were pursuing an agenda in relation to medical marijuana, which had nothing to do with the government. They were not pursuing the policies of legislation or legislation of the government. They were pursuing their own views as to whether this should be allowed. And this came out openly in court before a judge, and the judge straight away condemned it, and that's how they won the case. Now, those people could have been charged with any of about at least 3 offenses. 1, abuse of office, Section 118 of the Penal Code, Section 13 of the Anti-Corruption Law, possibly also Section 119 of the Penal Code, which talks about negligence. This is a little worse than negligence, but maybe they could have been charged there. They could have been charged under Section 191 of the Penal Code, which is 121, which is willful disobedience to law, which is really what they did. And yet the DPP up to now hasn't charged anybody in that case. That's a very, very serious case. Somebody abusing their office to bring loss and suffering on a lawful business when they knew that actually what they were doing was unlawful. And yet up to now, nobody has been charged. And in fact, the government has engaged up to now 2 cases who are trying to defend what happened there so that these people are not charged. And then they claim to have gotten any, and I'm watching the time.
Yeah, you got 1 minute.
They claimed, yes, they were claiming that, well, a KC said that we shouldn't charge it because it would be difficult to prove. That's utter nonsense. And that KC should take his certificate of being a KC and throw it in the fire because it's not worth anything. Okay, the last point. You remember the paralegal, I won't call her name because she's moved on now. The paralegal who they charged in the portfolio of legal affairs, they charged her, they said she held on to a file because her son was being charged. They charged her, but they didn't charge her supervisor. And yet with her, she had made open disclosure to her supervisor, this is my son, but I'm begging you, please, can you just warn him? She ended up being charged and her life ruined while her supervisor was not charged. They should have actually charged the supervisor because you go after the big fish, but they went after the poor Caymanian paralegal. Poor lady, I know her, I worked for a little bit, sweet, sweet person. They ruined her life. Let me leave it there, and I hope that is a good introduction. Then we can go on
tomorrow
in future and discuss.
There we go.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, we've come to an end of today's episode of Sabrina Speaks, because up next, it's getting to the top right here on CMR TV. I want to thank all of you for staying with me. I want to thank you for joining me today. And please, the continuation of Breaking the Constitution and the Bill of Rights continues tomorrow. Until tomorrow, love you lots. Take care.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.